Hi, I'm Christopher Hine. Today I'm going to talk to you about a kanren flow waza drill that I use for the kyo waza. So that's a lot of things to say all at once. So we're going to talk about the kyo waza and how they flow, they kanren into another one. And kanren just means adaptive, so how we can adapt one kyo waza into another kyo waza. I'm going to get Josh out here. We're going to go to work. Josh? All right, so let's talk about a kyo waza flow drill that I use. Kyo waza is ikkyo through rokyo in my school. I know some schools have nanakyo, and there's differences of opinion about what goes where, but we use 6. I'll show you those 6 right now. And the way that I start to get my students working through them, I think kind of ingrains the ideas of the kyo waza to you better than the forms do initially, meaning that you'll kind of see why one technique will feed another technique. And this goes in a really nice progression of 1 through 6, but they could go in many different progressions once you kind of understand this basic idea. So this starts from the shomanuchi position. The very first kyo waza is ikkyo, and so that's controlling the underside of the elbow right here. So if I control the underside of their elbow, then I can push them away from me or whatever it is I can do, right? So that turns out real good for me. All right, now in that, if I go into ikkyo and they grab me and I can't get them off and they start working their elbow down and they're stronger than me, then I don't have an ikkyo. And you see he gets an ikkyo for that, right? And so, in fact, if you've taken a Nidon test, that's the kanren or the kaishi for it. Okay, so I'm here like this. As he pushes the elbow down, what I'm going to do is immediately go to nikyo. So you see, I'm using his desire to get out of ikkyo to go into nikyo. Now, this is a little bit of a contrived way to show it because generally I believe this nikyo should be used as hadoki, like that. But we're keeping it so we can kind of flow a little more here. Okay, now, if I start to work nikyo and he raises his elbow, of course I have ikkyo again, but I also now have sankyo. And so you can see I can come into sankyo and control him there. And that's because his elbow went back up. If he tries to drop his elbow down, and that's what would take the sankyo over, so if he dropped his arm this way, he could throw me back that way, right? So if he can drive that arm down, that's no good for me. So what I do is I slide my hand here and I get yankyo. And now by being in the yankyo position, if he pushes his elbow down, he hates it, right? It's no good. So that's not a good position for him. But now let's say this is a real brute of a guy and he could drive it down anyways. I catch him in here and I get gokyo, and this is often called a come along. People like to call this come along. But so this is gokyo right here. I'm crushing the wrist. Now if he doesn't like me crushing that wrist, he's going to shoot his arm out of there, and that's going to give me rokyo right here. So the rokyo sets up in the form of mayotoshi. So mayotoshi is also a rokyo. Anytime I'm going against the elbow, that's rokyo. Now what's important to understand about this is in Aikido, if you're dealing with an arm, in any martial art, if you're dealing with an arm, the arm only has 3 positions, right? The arm can be straight, the hand can be up from a straight arm, or the hand can be down from a straight arm. That's it, and up and down is relative to the person. Up is towards their head, hand towards their head, and down is hand towards their feet, right? So it's either going to be straight, up, or down. Aikido has lots of ways to solve that. And generally, when you're trying to do a technique to someone, people are going to counter your technique by going in the opposite direction, right? So for example, if I'm trying to push Josh's elbow up, Josh is going to push his elbow down. Now from the context that we have right here, when he pushes his elbow down, I get nikyo for it. Okay? Now, if I'm trying to do a technique that involves his elbow down, he's going to do the opposite, which is raise his elbow up. Now, of course, understand ikkyo's there, but also sankyo's there. Now, if we're in this up elbow position and he wants to transition down, I could slide my hand here, so when he tries to go down, he doesn't like it anymore, right? And he shoots his elbow forward, which again gives me the ikkyo or the sankyo if I wanted either of those. But if I tried that technique and it failed and he came down anyways, I can still trap his arm in this little cradle right here, which is a form of gokyo, and there's several gokyos like this. This isn't it, right? And then if I'm trying to do something to his arm and he shoots his arm straight to be strong, I could get rokyo. Now I said these could go together in different ways. So understand, if I was trying to do sankyo and he straightened his arm to get out of the sankyo, and it weakened my sankyo, I still have rokyo because a straight arm is a rokyo technique, right? Let's say I was going into I'm just making one up that's kind of crazy here. Let's say I'm going into a nikyo and he wants to raise his elbow up, right? From this, I can go to ikkyo, or I could go to sankyo, or I can go to anything that's elbow up. So that's the way you should be thinking about it. Instead of thinking that the techniques are limited to first a shionage has to happen, or first a shomanuchi has to happen, and then this has to happen, and then that has to happen. It's limiting the way you can do your techniques. But when you understand that the kyo waza each feed each other, one kyo waza leads into another kyo waza. And generally when a kyo waza can't happen, we use a nage waza to upset their balance, so we reset the situation. So that's kind of the systematic way these techniques are working. So this little flow drill is a nice way to kind of work through the waza and get your students thinking about how one technique can lead to another and how they feed each other when things go wrong. I'm Christopher Hine. This is Joshua Teehee, my Salon McDaniels behind the camera. Thank you for watching.